The skies above Earth darkened as the massive ship entered orbit, blotting out the sun over major cities like a metallic eclipse. People around the world stopped and stared upward, their daily routines forgotten as news broadcasts showed the same phenomenon worldwide. It was happening after decades of searching the stars and sending signals into the void. Humanity had its answer. We were not alone. The galactic hegemony had been watching Earth for years through their advanced surveillance network. Their probes, disguised as ordinary asteroids and space debris, had catalogued human military capabilities, communication systems, and societal structures. Admiral Park, standing tall on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion, viewed the blue planet on his command screen with cold calculation. "Primitive," he remarked to his second-in-command, "but resourceful. Their technological development curve is steeper than most species we've encountered. When the first communication came, it bypassed all Earth security protocols and broadcast simultaneously on every screen and speaker on the planet." Admiral Park's face, humanoid but with iridescent scales along his temples and unnaturally perfect symmetry, appeared before a stunned global audience. "People of Earth," he announced in flawless multiple languages, "your world has been claimed by the eternal hegemony, rulers of 4,000 star systems across this galactic spiral. Your technological signature has triggered our expansion protocols. Prepare to receive our diplomatic vessel." The landing occurred 12 hours later in neutral territory, a clearing created by the aliens' energy weapons in Switzerland's untouched wilderness. President Kim of the United Earth Council arrived with representatives from every major nation, alongside scientists and a small military contingent that seemed laughably inadequate as the alien shuttle descended. The craft moved with impossible grace, defying known physics as it settled on the grass without disturbing a single blade. Admiral Park emerged with 4 guards whose armor seemed to shift colors with their movements. The Admiral carried a small metallic sphere that hovered just above his 6-fingered hand. "President Kim," Park said without introduction or pleasantries, "your species has achieved sufficient development to warrant official contact. The Empire requires new resources, and your world has been selected for immediate integration." The meeting lasted exactly 17 minutes. No negotiations, no cultural exchange, just terms of surrender disguised as diplomatic language. The hovering sphere contained data about the Empire and a communication device to transmit Earth's answer. "Your species has 2 standard cycles to decide," Admiral Park announced coldly to President Kim and the assembled world leaders. "The Empire does not negotiate. Accept Imperial authority or face extinction. The choice is simple." As the alien craft departed, silence hung over the gathering until broken by General Wu's bitter laugh. "Well, that was direct. They didn't even pretend to be friendly." Back in the emergency session of the United Earth Council, chaos erupted. Some nations advocated immediate surrender, citing the obviously superior technology they'd witnessed. Others called for unified resistance at any cost. Videos of the alien ship had leaked worldwide, causing panic in major cities and religious fervor in others. Beneath the public crisis, President Kim authorized a top-secret initiative. The communication sphere was transported under heavy guard to an underground research facility beneath Seoul, hidden from orbital observation by layers of signal-dampening technology developed for the previous decade's conflict. Dr. Lee, Earth's foremost expert in quantum communications, led the team analyzing the alien device. The pressure was immense, humanity's future potentially resting on their findings. The facility operated on complete lockdown, scientists working in rotating shifts as the countdown to the Empire's return ticked away. "It's like nothing we've seen before," Dr. Lee explained during the daily briefing, her eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. "The materials aren't even in our periodic table, but there's something familiar about the underlying logic." On the 3rd night, while most of the team grabbed precious few hours of sleep, Dr. Lee's assistant Tay continued scanning the device's emissions across multiple frequency bands. He had been testing a theory that seemed insignificant compared to the main research avenues, that the sphere might be receiving regular updates from the Imperial ship still orbiting beyond the moon. At 3:17 a.m., his monitoring equipment detected "Hi, Patton." Dr. Lee, Tay called out, startling his mentor who had fallen asleep at her workstation. "Look at this signal repetition. Every 14 minutes exactly, the sphere transmits and receives a burst of data." Dr. Lee snapped, fully awake, adjusting her glasses as she stared at the readings. "Can you isolate the frequency range?" They worked furiously, tracking the signals and attempting to decode the encryption. As dawn broke above their underground facility, Tay's pattern recognition algorithm finally made the breakthrough. "They're shield frequencies," Tay exclaimed, eyes wide. "They operate on predictable patterns. See here and here, it's the same mathematical sequence repeating. We can exploit this." Dr. Lee studied the data, her hands trembling slightly as she realized the implications. The signals contained more than just communications. They included maintenance data for the Imperial ship's defensive systems. The shields that protected their vessels followed mathematical progressions that, while incredibly complex, could be predicted. "If we can predict the frequency modulations," she said slowly, "we could potentially develop weapons that phase match at exactly the right moment to penetrate their defenses." They worked through the morning, refining their analysis, before presenting it to military scientists. Theoretical weapons designs were drafted, adaptations of existing Earth technology that might stand a chance against the Imperial ships. 2 days before the deadline, President Kim received the findings in a secure bunker. The plan was desperate, with no guarantee of success. Earth's combined military might would likely be crushed even if the shield weakness could be exploited. Millions would die in the opening hours of conflict. The alternative was submission to an empire that had shown no regard for human autonomy or dignity. President Kim studied the reports, then looked up at the tired faces of Dr. Lee, Tay, and the gathered military advisors. Her expression hardened with grim determination. "Then we have our answer for the empire," she said quietly. "Prepare everything. Humanity will not kneel." 2 standard cycles passed like a collective breath held by humanity. When the Imperial delegation arrived for their answer, they found a changed Earth. Cities had been quietly evacuated, industries repurposed, and a single stubborn plan put into motion. Admiral Park stood again before the United Earth Council, his scaled face showing no emotion as he waited for their submission. President Kim rose from her seat, her voice steady despite the weight of her next words. "The people of Earth have considered your generous offer," she said, choosing each word carefully. "Humanity chooses freedom." A flicker of surprise crossed Admiral Park's face before settling back into cold indifference. "A regrettable decision," he replied. "Extinction will commence immediately." The Imperial delegation departed without further comment. 90 minutes later, the horror began. The hegemony struck with brutal efficiency. Massive ships descended through the atmosphere, positioning themselves above major population centers. Energy weapons carved through buildings like they were made of paper. Seoul vanished in a blinding flash as antimatter bombs erased the city center. New York's famous skyline collapsed as gravitational weapons crushed steel and concrete. Cairo's ancient pyramids, which had witnessed millennia of human history, melted under heat beams that turned sand to glass. In underground bunkers and hidden facilities across the world, military commanders watched the devastation on their screens. Conventional weapons fired at the Imperial ships detonated harmlessly against shimmering energy shields. Fighter jets were swatted from the sky by automated defense systems. Earth's most advanced missiles exploded miles from their targets, neutralized by technologies humans could barely comprehend. "Where is the Firebird?" General Han demanded, her face illuminated by emergency lighting in the Himalayan command center as the facility shook from nearby impacts. "Has Captain June launched?" Our experimental vessel had been humanity's most closely guarded secret. While the world prepared for the possibility of alien contact, a consortium of scientists had been developing technology based on theoretical physics that most considered impossible. The Firebird was small, barely large enough for its crew of 12, but incorporated everything Earth's brightest minds could create. Captain June sat in the command chair of the vessel, hidden in an underwater hangar beneath Lake Baikal. His hands moved across the control panel, activating systems that hummed with power. The crew worked in focused silence, each aware that they might be humanity's last hope. Dr. Lee's frequency modulators online, reported his second-in-command. Power at maximum. Shield predictions calculating. Launch sequence initiated, June confirmed. May our ancestors watch over us today. The water above the hangar boiled away as the Firebird rose on pillars of blue-white energy. Unlike conventional rockets, the ship moved with almost graceful precision, accelerating to attack velocity in seconds. On the main display, red dots showed Imperial warships in low Earth orbit. 3 targets directly above, June announced. Weapons ready, remember. We need to time the frequency shifts exactly as Dr. Lee calculated. The Firebird climbed higher, its experimental stealth systems, masking its approach from Imperial sensors. They were almost in firing range when an enemy patrol craft detected them. We've been spotted, called out the sensor officer. They're charging weapons. June's hands tightened on the controls. Earlier than planned. Engage main weapons. Sync to predicted frequency pattern Alpha. The Firebird's energy cannons fired, beams of concentrated particles that shifted frequency 1,000,000 times per second. The first beam struck the Imperial patrol ship's shields and passed through them as if they weren't there. The smaller craft exploded in silent brilliance. It worked, someone shouted. The frequency prediction worked. Alarms blared as Imperial warships turned their attention to the human vessel. June pushed the Firebird into evasive maneuvers that would have killed an unprotected human crew, if not for the inertial dampeners. Target the nearest destroyer, June ordered. Same frequency pattern, the Firebird danced between energy beams. And missiles, its tiny frame making it difficult to hit. When they lined up their second shot, the result was the same. Their weapons passed through the Imperial shields and struck the larger vessel's power core. The destroyer cracked apart, secondary explosions rippling along its hull, but the hegemony adapted quickly. The remaining ships began randomly modulating their shield frequencies, making prediction harder. Energy blasts rocked the Firebird, systems failing across the ship. One more, June said through gritted teeth as warning lights flashed around. Him. We prove it can be done. Target their command ship. With hull breaches on 2 decks and life support failing, the Firebird charged toward the largest Imperial vessel. Their weapons charged for a final shot, computers calculating the rapidly shifting shield patterns. They fired just as the enemy vessel unleashed its main weapon. The Firebird's beam sliced through the command ship's shields and carved a devastating path through its length. Simultaneously, the Imperial energy weapon engulfed the human vessel. Completely. From the Himalayan command center, General Han watched the distant flash in orbit. The sensors showed the destruction of both ships. Captain June did it, her aide whispered. 3 ships destroyed. It's actually possible. But there was no time for celebration. Dozens more Imperial vessels were entering atmosphere, and orbital bombardment platforms were moving into position. Earth had struck its first blow, but the response would be merciless. General Han accessed the global emergency broadcast system. Operation Prometheus is now active, she announced to waiting commanders worldwide. Scatter the embers, remember the plan. Across Earth, hidden bunkers opened. Vessels that had been disguised as commercial buildings, concealed in mountain ranges, or buried beneath the oceans prepared for launch. Unlike the military Firebird, these were arcs, carrying 10,000 civilians each, along with genetic samples, cultural databases, and everything needed to preserve humanity away from Earth. As the first civilian ships broke atmosphere, Imperial vessels moved to intercept them. But they were met by Earth's remaining military forces, pilots and crews, who knew they were on one-way missions, buying time with their lives so others could escape. From her command center, General Han watched the desperate exodus. Some ships were destroyed, bright flashes marking their end, but others slipped past using the chaos of battle as cover to accelerate toward pre-planned destinations throughout the solar system. The general looked at the tactical display one last time as the facility shook from direct hits. Earth was burning, cities were falling, but humanity's spark would not be extinguished. They demanded our submission, she said quietly. Instead, we give them our defiance. The last ships vanished from tracking range as General Han initiated. The command center's self-destruct sequence. The war for Earth was lost. The war for humanity's survival was just beginning. The red dust of Mars swirled around the entrance to what appeared to be just another unremarkable cave in the planet's northern highlands. A keen observer might have noticed how the dust patterns never quite reached the cave mouth itself, deflected by an invisible barrier. That same observer would have quickly disappeared, either recruited or eliminated by Colonel Doe's security teams that patrolled the perimeter. 6 months after Earth's. For the Mars Resistance Base had grown into a small city. Carved deep into the planet's crust, the settlement housed nearly 15,000 survivors. Hydroponics gardens provided food, water was extracted from subsurface ice, and recycled air flowed through a complex filtration system. But this was no mere survival shelter. It was the headquarters of humanity's counterattack. Colonel Doe walked through the central command hub, nodding to technicians who monitored Imperial communications and ship movements. A former Special Forces commander, Doe had been chosen years before the invasion to lead the Mars contingency base. Her scarred face and steady gaze had become symbols of resolve for the scattered human resistance. "Status report," she ordered, stopping beside the holographic display of the solar system. 2 Imperial patrol cruisers destroyed near Deimos, her intelligence officer reported. "Our strike team returned with minimal casualties and salvaged technology. Commander Sung's Europa team successfully intercepted the supply convoy to the Mercury mining operation." Doe studied the tactical display. The Empire had established bases across the solar system, stripping resources to fuel their massive war machine. They believed they had crushed human resistance on Earth, leaving only mop-up operations to deal with survivors. Their arrogance was their weakness. "And the Titan communication?" she asked. "Came in during the night cycle. Dr. Lee requests a secure channel with General Han." Doe nodded. "Set it up in my private quarters." 200 million miles away, beneath the thick methane atmosphere of Saturn's largest moon, Dr. Lee stood in her laboratory. Titan had been chosen for the most ambitious research facility because its dense atmosphere and magnetic interference made it difficult for Imperial sensors to penetrate. The facility was built into the moon's icy crust with geothermal taps, providing power. Dr. Lee hadn't slept properly in days. Her team had been working non-stop on the technology that might give humanity its only real chance, the jump drive. Based on principles of quantum entanglement and space-time manipulation, the theoretical device would allow ships to travel vast distances almost instantaneously. "Simulations are promising," her colleague reported, scrolling through data projections. "But we can't be certain until we test it on an actual vessel." "I know," Dr. Lee said, rubbing her tired eyes. "That's why I've called General Han." The secure communication room was perhaps the most heavily protected chamber in any human settlement. When the connection established, 3 faces appeared on separate screens. Colonel Doe from Mars, Commander Sung from Europa, and General Han, whose location remained classified even from other resistance leaders. General Han had aged visibly since the fall of Earth. Her hair had turned completely white and new lines marked her face, but her eyes remained sharp, intense with purpose. "Dr. Lee," she said, "your message indicated breakthrough. Is it ready?" "The jump drive works," Dr. Lee told General Han over the encrypted channel. "At least all simulations and limited tests indicate success. We can reach Proxima Centauri in days instead of years." A moment of silence followed as the implications sank in. Proxima Centauri, the nearest star system to Sol, beyond the Empire's expected perimeter of human activity. "You're certain?" Commander Sung asked from Europa. "The commander's base, hidden beneath miles of ice in Europa's subsurface. Ocean, specialized in stealth technology and communications." "As certain as we can be without a full-scale test," Dr. Lee replied. "We've converted one of our stealth scouts to accommodate the drive. It's ready for deployment." General Han's expression remained carefully controlled. "This could change everything. If we can move beyond our solar system, establish bases in nearby star systems." "We need our best pilot," Dr. Lee said. "The jump calculations are complex, and the navigational demands after emergence will require exceptional skill." On Mars, Colonel Doe nodded. I have someone in mind. 3 days later, pilot G stood in the Titan facility's hangar bay, staring at the modified scout ship. Once a standard stealth vessel, the craft now housed Dr. Lee's experimental jump drive, an array of glowing crystalline structures surrounding a pulsing core. G had been among the top fighter pilots on Earth before the invasion. During the desperate evacuation, he had single-handedly held off 3 Imperial interceptors, allowing a civilian transport to escape. His skill was legendary among the Resistance, but so was his recklessness since losing everything. The mission parameters are simple, Dr. Lee explained, walking him around the vessel. You'll take the ship beyond Saturn's orbit to avoid detection, activate the jump drive, and attempt transition to the Proxima Centauri system. Once there, conduct basic reconnaissance, then return using the same method. G nodded, his face betraying no emotion. And if something goes wrong? The emergency protocols are loaded into the ship's computer, she replied. But honestly, if the drive fails during transition, we don't know what would happen. Later that evening, G met with General Han, who had arrived on Titan for this crucial mission. They stood before a viewport showing Saturn's magnificent rings. Why did you volunteer? Han asked, though she suspected the answer. The young pilot G looked at her, his eyes reflecting the distant glow of the ringed planet. My family died in Seoul, he said quietly. I had to watch the city burn from my fighter as I was ordered to retreat. I have nothing to lose. General Han studied him for a moment. Other officers might have offered platitudes about duty and the greater good. Han simply nodded. Then bring our fire to the stars. Launch day arrived with tense anticipation. The modified scout, nicknamed Starshot, was moved to the surface launch facility during Titan's night cycle. G completed final checks, while wearing the new integrated flight suit developed specifically for jump navigation. The suit's neural interface will help you process the sensory input during and after the jump, Dr. Lee told him, as technicians made final adjustments. No one knows exactly what you'll experience. G managed a small smile. Sounds exciting. As he boarded the ship, Dr. Lee handed him a small metal cylinder. Emergency data package. If you can't return for any reason, but find something, or someone, out there that might help us, this contains everything they would need to know about Earth, the Empire, and our situation. Xi secured the cylinder in his flight suit. I'll come back, Doctor. The launch was deliberately understated. No countdown, no ceremony. One moment the Starshot sat on the pad. The next, it silently rose on anti-gravity lifters and accelerated upward through Titan's hazy atmosphere. Clearing Titan orbital space, G reported through the quantum-encrypted channel. No sign of Imperial patrols. He piloted the craft with precision, using Saturn's rings for sensor cover as he moved toward his designated jump point. The ship hummed with energy as the drive core began its activation sequence. Jump coordinates locked, G reported. Drive powering up. In the Titan control room, Dr. Lee and General Han watched the telemetry with held breath. Good luck, G, General Han said simply. On the Starshot, G's hands moved across the controls with practiced ease as warnings flashed across his display. The jump drive's energy readings spiked beyond predicted levels. Some fluctuation in the containment field, he reported calmly. Compensating. The space around the small ship began to distort visibly, stars smearing like wet paint. G felt pressure building inside his head despite the neural interface. Initiating jump in 3, 2, 1. The Starshot vanished in a flash of light that briefly outshone Saturn itself. In the control room, Dr. Lee stared at the empty sensor readings. Now we wait, she whispered. General Han's expression revealed nothing, but her hand tightened on the edge of the console. Humanity's future had just been launched into the unknown, carried by a pilot with nothing to lose and everything to prove. The ocean stretched in every direction, its surface rippling with bioluminescent patterns that shifted like living constellations. G stood on the floating platform, breathing the salty air of Leuten B through his adapted respirator. 2 years since that first desperate jump, and still the wonders of other worlds could stop him in his tracks. Beautiful, isn't it? Asked Sun, moving to stand beside him. My ancestors called it the Great Canvas. They believed the gods painted their dreams on its surface each night. Sun's people, the Meri, had evolved in this vast ocean world. Their bodies were streamlined and powerful, skin iridescent blue with webbed hands and large expressive eyes. Though they could breathe air for hours, they were most at home beneath the waves. For centuries, they had been slaves to the Empire, forced to harvest rare minerals from their planet's deep trenches. Hard to believe this world was once an imperial mining colony, G replied. Your people have transformed it back. Sun's expression darkened. We had generations of practice hiding our true nature. The Empire thought they had broken us completely. G understood. The story had played out across 7 star systems now, species that had suffered under imperial rule for centuries, their cultures suppressed, their resources plundered. Yet beneath the surface, resistance had smoldered, waiting only for a spark. Humanity had brought that spark. The new shipment arrived, Sun said, changing the subject. 30 modified shield disruptors, plus the technical specs for your people. To build more. G nodded in satisfaction. The Europa facility is producing them at full capacity now. With these templates, your engineers can adapt them to work with your underwater vessels. They walked along the floating city's pathways, passing Meri, who gestured respectfully to both of them. The alliance between humans and the aquatic species had proven invaluable. The Meri knew the secrets of moving undetected through water worlds, invaluable knowledge for attacking imperial bases on ocean planets. Report from the Procyon system came in last night, Sun continued. The Vashi hive cities have officially joined the alliance that makes 12 species now, G smiled. The Vashi were insectoid engineers whose tunneling technology could penetrate any known material, another crucial ally. Time to head to the meeting then, he said, looking up at the sky where his ship waited in orbit. General Han will want to know. The journey to the TRAPPIST system took 3 jumps. The original Starshot had evolved over 2 years, upgraded with technology from several allied species. What once had been experimental was now proven, humanity's greatest achievement spreading across the stars. For the first 6 months after his initial jump, G had been alone, a solitary human exploring nearby systems and searching for potential allies. When he found the Meri resistance on Loiton B, everything changed. They had known of other subjugated species, other worlds where imperial control was resented but unchallenged. One by one, G had visited these worlds, carrying Earth's message. Resistance is possible. Imperial shields could be penetrated. Their weapons could be defeated. Freedom was worth fighting for. The TRAPPIST system had been chosen for the first formal alliance meeting because of its unique properties. The 7-planet system orbited a red dwarf star, and the 4th world housed a moon with unusual magnetic properties that confused imperial sensors. There, in a vast underground chamber, representatives from 12 species gathered for the first time. G's ship docked at the concealed hangar carved into the moon's surface. Sun emerged from the passenger compartment, adjusting to the gravity with practiced ease. They were met by Kel, a towering reptilian being whose species had once been elite warriors before being conquered. The others have arrived, Kel announced, leading them down crystalline corridors lit by bioluminescent plants. General Han is preparing to speak. The meeting chamber was a marvel of alien architecture, walls of living crystal that hummed with energy, supporting a vast dome that revealed the red dwarf star above. The representatives formed a circle, each species distinct in appearance, but united in purpose. G took his place beside Sun as General Han entered. The human leader had become a legend among the allied species, the architect of resistance against an empire that had seemed invincible. She moved slowly now, her body bearing the scars of several battles, but her presence silenced the chamber immediately. Look around you, Han began without preamble. 12 species from 12 worlds, each with unique gifts, technologies, and knowledge, each having suffered under imperial rule, each having found the courage to say, no more. She activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber, showing the tactical situation across known space. Red markers indicated imperial strongholds, while blue showed liberated worlds and yellow highlighted active resistance cells. 2 years ago, humanity stood alone against the Empire. They believed they had broken us, burned our world and scattered our survivors. They were wrong. We are not broken. We are forged. Han's voice carried throughout the chamber. And now we are no longer alone. Representatives nodded or made gestures of agreement according to their species' customs. The Empire has ruled through fear and division for millennia, Han continued. They conquer one world at a time, using each new species against the others, never allowing the subjugated to communicate, to share knowledge, to recognize their common cause. She expanded the holographic display to show the entire known galaxy. That ends today. Together we form the Prometheus Alliance. Together we share technology, resources, and intelligence. Together we burn brighter. The simple phrase resonated throughout the chamber. Each species translator rendered it slightly differently, but the meaning remained intact. Unity would be their strength. For the next 3 days, the representatives shared battle plans, technological innovations, and cultural knowledge. The Meri contributed their stealth technology. The Vashi shared tunneling methods that could penetrate Imperial fortifications. Human engineers demonstrated the latest shield disruptor improvements. On the final day, as the conference concluded, an urgent transmission arrived from the Sol system. Colonel Doe's face appeared on the main communication display, her expression triumphant. The Imperial fleet has departed Sol space, she announced. 18 capital ships, withdrawn to deal with uprisings in the Centauri systems. Our observers report only 3 destroyer-class vessels remaining in Earth orbit. A murmur swept through the chamber. The Empire, stretched thin by growing resistance across multiple systems, was being forced to redistribute its forces. The moment we've prepared for has arrived, Colonel Doe continued. All resistance cells are mobilizing. The Phoenix rises. General Han turned to the assembled representatives, her eyes bright with purpose. The liberation of Earth begins now. The Empire will learn that when they demanded our submission, they ignited a fire that will consume them. As the delegates dispersed to their ships, Ji found himself standing beside Sun on an observation deck, watching the distant stars. Your people fight like none we've seen, Sun told him. When the Empire conquered my world 3 centuries ago, they told us resistance was impossible. They had ruled for thousands of years, they said. No one could stand against them. Sun's large eyes reflected the starlight. You've given us hope, not just to my people, but to all who suffer under Imperial rule. Ji thought of his family, of soul burning, of Earth left behind. Hope is a powerful weapon, he said quietly, perhaps the most powerful of all. As their ships prepared to jump back to their respective systems, a new chapter in the resistance was beginning. The Empire had created an inferno that was now spreading beyond their control, system by system, world by world. And Earth, the first world to say no, awaited liberation. 5 years after Earth's fall, the Alliance fleet gathered at the edge of the Arcturus system. Over 300 vessels of various sizes and designs, each representing the unique technology and culture of its species, assembled in precise formation. At the center flew the massive flagship Sol's Vengeance, constructed in the hidden shipyards of Titan and enhanced with technology from a dozen worlds. On the bridge, General Han stood before the tactical display, her white hair cut short against her scalp, face lined with the weight of command. Around her gathered the fleet captains, human and alien alike, for what might be their final briefing. Helix Prime, Han said, gesturing to the holographic representation of the Imperial throne world. For 10,000 years, no enemy has penetrated its defenses. The Emperor has never known defeat. Today, that changes. The captain studied the display with focused intensity. Helix Prime was a marvel of Imperial engineering, a planet encased in layers of energy shields, surrounded by automated defense platforms and a permanent fleet of warships. Intelligence from our operatives confirms the shield generator is located here, Han continued, highlighting a massive structure on the night side of the planet. Heavily guarded, of course, but Dr. Lee's final modifications to the frequency disruptors should give us the advantage we need. Dr. Lee stepped forward. The years had taken their toll on her as well, but her mind remained brilliant. The disruptors have been synchronized across all Alliance vessels. When activated simultaneously, they should create cascade failures throughout their shield network. General Han nodded. We'll have one chance at the planetary shield generator, she told the assembled captains. Once it falls, the ground team moves. Every moment after that, the Empire adapts. Speed will determine victory or defeat. G stood at the back of the room, listening quietly. Beside him, Sun's amphibious form shifted with nervous energy. They would lead the ground assault, a mission with minimal chances of survival. Questions? Han asked, surveying the room. A Vashi captain raised a multi-jointed limb. The Imperial Homeworld Defense Fleet outnumbers us 3-1. Even with shield disruption technology, casualties will be extreme. Yes, Han acknowledged simply, which is why our first wave will be unmanned drone ships. Their sacrifice will reveal the enemy's tactical patterns and draw fire from our main forces. The briefing continued for another hour, each element of the plan dissected and refined. As the captains dispersed to their ships, G remained behind with Sun. Having second thoughts? Sun asked, large eyes blinking slowly. G smiled grimly. About leading a strike team into the most heavily defended fortress in the galaxy. Not at all. Liar, Sun replied, but the translator couldn't capture the affectionate tone in the merry language. General Han approached them, her steps slower than they once had been. Walk with me, she said. They followed her through the corridors of the flagship. Crew members saluted or bowed as they passed, respect evident in every face. Han had become more than a leader. She was the living symbol of defiance against tyranny. The strike team is prepared, she asked. G nodded. 12 members, 2 from each of the original Alliance species, the best infiltrators in the galaxy. And the package. Secured, Sun confirmed, tapping a container attached to the specialized environmental suit. If we reach the Emperor's inner sanctum, it will deliver the message directly to his neural network. Han stopped at a viewport, gazing out at the assembled fleet. 5 years ago, I watched Earth burn. I thought I was witnessing the end of humanity. Instead, it was the beginning of something greater than I could have imagined. She turned to face them. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember that the Empire's greatest mistake was believing they could extinguish our fire. The jump to Helix Prime came at dawn, ship time. 300 vessels appearing simultaneously in Imperial space. An impossibility, according to their defense protocols. The element of surprise gave the Alliance precious minutes before the Imperial fleet could organize its response. All ships, execute Battle Plan Phoenix. General Han's voice carried across the communications network. Drone wave, advance! Unmanned vessels surged forward, drawing fire from Imperial defense platforms. Behind them, Alliance warships moved. Into formation, weapons charging as they prepared to target the shield generator. On the hangar deck, G and Sun boarded their assault craft with the strike team. Each member carried specialized equipment designed to counter Imperial security systems. Their ship, sleek and black, designed for stealth rather than combat, would slip through the chaos of battle to deliver them to the surface. Strike. Team ready for deployment, G reported through his neural link. Acknowledged, came Han's response. Await shield disruption. Outside, the battle erupted in full fury. Imperial warships, massive constructs of metal and energy, moved to intercept the Alliance fleet. Space itself seemed to warp with the exchange of exotic weapons. Beams of concentrated energy sliced through void, while gravitic torpedoes created miniature black holes that swallowed everything in their path. On the bridge of Soul's Vengeance, General Han directed the battle with calm precision. All ships, prepare disruptors. Target coordinates locked. Fire on my mark. Throughout the Alliance fleet, Dr. Lee's devices hummed with power. 3, 2, 1, mark. Invisible waves of precisely modulated energy burst from 300 ships simultaneously, converging on the planetary shield. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like cracks spreading through ice, visible disruptions appeared in the shimmering energy field protecting Helix Prime. Shield integrity failing, an officer reported. Cascade effect confirmed. Han's voice was steady as she gave the order. Strike team, launch now. G felt the acceleration push him into his seat as their craft shot from the hangar. Around them, the battle raged. Alliance and Imperial ships locked in deadly combat. Their pilot, a Kerrigan whose species possessed unmatched reflexes, guided them through the chaos with impossible precision. "Approaching atmosphere," the pilot reported. "Brace for turbulence." They hit the weakened shields at maximum velocity. For a terrifying moment, energy crackled around their hull, systems flickering. Then they were through, plunging toward the surface of Helix Prime. The Imperial capital spread beneath them, a city of impossible spires and floating platforms, built over millennia by conquered species forced to create monuments to their subjugation. At its center rose the Emperor's citadel, a mountain of metal and crystal that dwarfed all surrounding structures. "Landing zone compromised," the pilot announced, as anti-aircraft fire erupted around them. "Alternate drop required." G exchanged glances with Sun. "How close can you get us?" "Within half a kilometer of the target. Better prepare for a hard exit." The ship screamed toward the citadel, evading defensive fire with a series of maneuvers that strained its structural integrity. When they were aligned with a maintenance platform jutting from the citadel's middle section, the pilot gave the warning, "Drop." In 3 seconds, the floor opened beneath them. G and Sun led the strike team in freefall for 20 terrifying meters before their suits' gravitic systems engaged, allowing them to land with precision on the platform. Behind them, their transport veered away, drawing pursuit from Imperial fighters. "Move," G ordered, and the team rushed toward a service entrance. The battle to reach the Emperor's inner sanctum became a blur of corridors, security checkpoints, and desperate firefights. Imperial guards, cybernetically enhanced warriors bred for absolute loyalty, fell before the strike team's specialized weapons. But the team suffered losses too, 3 members dead before they reached the central lift shaft. "Almost there," Sun panted, bleeding from a wound in one shoulder. "According to the schematics, the throne room is 2 levels up." G nodded grimly, checking the charge on his disruptor pistol. 5 shots remaining. "Let's finish this." The Emperor's throne room was a cathedral to power, vast and imposing, with walls displaying real-time holograms of battles raging across the galaxy. On a raised platform sat a being unlike any other, neither fully biological nor mechanical, but something that had transcended both states. The Emperor had ruled for millennia, his consciousness distributed across both his physical form and the Imperial network. He showed no surprise as the strike team burst into the chamber, his ancient eyes regarding them with cold curiosity. "Fascinating," he said, his voice resonating strangely. "The mammals from Sol, I had not anticipated such persistence." Imperial guards moved to intercept, but the Emperor raised a hand to stop them. "No, let them approach. I would understand this anomaly before it is erased." G stepped forward, weapon lowered but ready. "Your empire is falling. Across the galaxy, your fleets are in retreat. Your subject worlds rise against you." "Temporary disorder," the Emperor replied dismissively, "one that has occurred before, over the millennia. Order will return, as it always does." Sun moved to G's side, the package in hand. "Not this time." With a swift motion, Sun activated the device. A pulse of energy washed through the room, momentarily disrupting all systems. When it cleared, the holographic battles had been replaced by a single image. Earth, beautiful and blue as it had been before the invasion. "What is this?" the Emperor demanded, his composed demeanor cracking slightly. "A message," G said quietly. "And a choice." The device projected the combined knowledge of 12 species, not weapons or tactics, but art, music, philosophy, and dreams. The beauty of diversity, the strength found in cooperation rather than domination. "Your empire was built on subjugation," G continued. "Ours will be built on alliance. Surrender now, and you will be treated with justice. Resist, and you will fall, as all tyrants eventually must." Above them, the ceiling shook as Alliance forces broke through the Citadel's remaining defenses. 3 months later, representatives from over 50 formerly Imperial worlds gathered in the rebuilt United Earth Council chamber. Where once destruction had reigned, new life flourished, the scars of invasion still visible but healing beneath careful restoration. President Kim, who had spent years leading an underground resistance on occupied Earth, addressed the assembled delegates. Her face showed the hardship of those years, but her eyes shone with unmistakable triumph. "We gather today not as conquerors, But as builders, she said, the empire that demanded our submission has fallen. The tyranny that spanned millennia has ended not through overwhelming force, but through the power of unity and hope. She gestured to where General Han sat with Ji Sun and Dr. Li, heroes of the resistance. From our darkest hour came our finest moment, she said. The empire demanded our submission. Humanity responded with fire, and that fire has forged a new galaxy. Not one ruled by dominance and fear, but one united in cooperation and respect for all sentient beings. As the council chamber erupted in cheers, Ji gazed upward through the transparent dome at the stars above, no longer distant and threatening, but full of promise and new beginnings. The end.